Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I see you laughing at me, Diana. Actually, you're not laughing at me at all. You're laughing at Rich. But
I'm allowed to.
I am Michelle, and with me, of course, is Diana.
Hello, everyone.
And this evening, we are joined by author and friend, Eddie Louise Clark. And I was talking to Eddie before you got on the Hangouts, and I was going, I really want to say I know you. I want to say I've met you at least once.
Yeah, full disclosure, and I are longtime writing buddies and reading buddies. And so it's really fun. It's like old home week to be on the show tonight.
Yeah, and it's your second time on the show. You were on in December of 2016, I think it was.
I think
the year that Michelle moved to Chicago. You were my guest co-host for the night.
Yeah.
The moving month.
And you guys actually
moving month. Oh.
And you guys
yes, so it's been a while, but hello, and Michelle, it's nice to actually be tonight.
I know. I'm so excited to have you on the show, and thank you for. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
I'm that up a little bit because you guys actually did meet in person.
Yes, I know. It was.
We did.
We were talking about it, and it was at your house.
Yes.
And it was like we were trying to start a book club or something, right?
No, it was game night. You, me, Eddie, and her husband.
Yeah, we did not.
We played. We're playing Train Game, also known as Ticket to Ride, which is great. I've never won a game myself, but it's a really fun game.
Is that the really complicated board game that like takes forever to figure out how to play correctly?
Oh, yes. But once you figure out how to play, it's really easy, and it's a lot of fun.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now I have the memory in my mind. So before we get started, what is everyone drinking this evening?
Let Jess go first. Eddie, what are you drinking?
Drinking Old Vine, which is kind of my kryptonite. I never allow myself to open a bottle of Old Vine for the open it while I'm still undone. It's a good one.
That's awesome. I love a good wine. I'm drinking Forma de Vida. It's one of our Winc wines that we get through the Winc wine club. And I know last week I mentioned it tastes like peaches. It's not just peaches. It tastes like the candy gummy peaches. Yeah. I'm like, it's not too sweet. So it's got that light, because I don't like sweet wine. So it's got that really light, summery peach candy taste to it, but with none of the sugar. So we replace the sugar with the alcohol, and it's like beautiful. It's wonderful.
That's a fair trade. I'll take that trade.
I'll take the trade any day. And what are you drinking, Michelle?
I'm actually out of white wines, which I'm kind of bummed out about. I'm thinking about making my July box all whites or rosés, whites and rosés. But I'm actually drinking a Merlot called Kin and Country. That's really good. Merlots are always kind of hit or miss for me because they tend to be they have, when you have a red and you have that after bite taste to it, that kind of like makes you wince a little bit when you swallow. This one does not have that, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a California Merlot, so I think it's very good.
Well, that's one of the great things about the Winc wines is because as you drink, you get to rate it, and so the recommendations become so personalized that they know what wines you're going to like before you know what you're going to like. I mean, they do have that guarantee that they will return a bottle if you don't like it, and I've been trying to take them up on that, but I have yet to find a bottle that I don't like. I think the lowest one I got was a nice star, and that was only because I picked out a bottle that they didn't recommend for me.
You always listen to the recommendations.
I should. It's just like a book.
Put your trust in Winc, woman.
Yes. You'll never go wrong.
Nice.
If you guys want to give it a try, go to trywink.com/www podcast. And for your first order, you get $22 off of the order.
Ooh, and that link is in the comment or the description section. I like doing this because I know you guys will love it. So anyway, we are here to talk about. Ooh, sorry. We are here to talk about your book Transmigrations, which I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, unfortunately. So full disclosure, full disclosure. But I'm so fascinated in talking about your creative process and how you build worlds, because I think that's something that really fascinates me about science fiction and fantasy, is how authors just build entire universes or worlds out of nothing. So how did the idea form, the basic idea for the storyline?
Like author, but really entire, and I am often not my names. I am a sort. I'm this person otherwise, but I'm completely inhabiting that person. And I have a woman clothes, Victorian, so 1890s, nipped in waist sleeves, thin hair during that time, but she kept electrocuting her screaming because I was dying from electrocution. And that went on and on for almost 7 nights. And on the 7th night, and when I herself over, always do clothing. I knew it wasn't just the same scene replaying, and I knew that she was electrocuting herself voluntarily, and I had to find out why. So the first thing I did was the city was in the 1890s, and it's interesting because we had just that our nerves spoke basically is an electric, and this Frankenstein era thought that if they could apply electricity to the 2 major most human bodies, create that regenesis. By the 1800s, it was the entire nervous. And now that led to so many things in my the electrocardiograms, the any sort of brain scanning, only being formed through galvanism. Every other form that you can be modern started with the Galvanists, the crazy people who try to learn. So once I knew the science, then I had that, and was a child or a youth love. I adored Quantum Leap. I loved that.
We're huge fans of Quantum Leap.
Masculine sort of character got to bounce into other lives. And I especially loved it when he had to be a woman. Because physicality, the very first time he went to a woman, it was so after.
Okay, I've got a great story about that. I'm so glad that you brought up Quantum Leap. I've got such a great story about that because we had Deborah Pratt on the show in January. She created Quantum Leap. And she's so great, so much fun. It was such a great episode. She got us drunk. And not going to lie, she totally did.
That was a rough day the next day.
But in addition to that, I was with her on, in February, we were on a panel together for the Greater Los Angeles Writers Society. So shout out to those guys. but it was so funny because when we were on the panel, she told this great story about the episode where he had to be in a woman's clothing, and the writers thought it would be hilarious for this. And the first time Scott wore a dress, he sat down on a metal chair, and then he jumped up. He was like, "Holy cow, it's cold!" And he was just like, "I can't."
Things that you don't think.
They don't think about it. They have to really
and that gave me a chance to really play with my story. So basically, the reason she was electrocuting her time travel, she figured out how to disconnect her cone form, bouncing through time and space into other events. And the last piece of the science that came, I read this amazing book called by Marilyn. Ooh, it'll take me a moment. I'll find her name. She talks about what actually until it's disposed. Basically, an hour after complete death, you could bring somebody back into the body and the body would recover. At that point, the breakdown of tissues has already to the human know or touch powers. It's begun to the point that the brain itself could not hold life. So that's what medical science uses is, if someone's gone and how long have they been gone, whether they will try resuscitation or not. So I thought, okay, so we're time traveling into dead bodies, but really dead.
Kind of dead.
Freedom there.
One of the most fascinating things that I want to know, especially, is you started this as a podcast, which you can go on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, if I'm not mistaken, and go there. You could get series 1, and I think you guys are on season 2 now, right? Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah. 2 full seasons of the audio drama, 14 episodes, and that was so we cut it back to being 12 episodes. The second episodes. It's
fun. It is a fun podcast to listen to, and it's very much of that old school radio drama. And I'm really curious how you went from podcast to book, how that worked out. What was that transition like, and what ended up bringing this to the book?
Well, I have to start. I'm not a podcast writer. I'm not a script writer. I class in university on script writing. I and there was a huge amount. There was a sales effort. Basically, you're an amazing writer, but you write weird. And a debut author with something. Go write something more mainstream, and this can be your second book. From those, I think so. Podcasting taking off, and especially the portion of it. And I was generous enough to go, hey, I took a class in writing. Let's do an audio drama. I had this dream, and so I started writing it, not knowing anything about what I was doing. The thing is, my understanding of story, the necessary way to build story in a long form, like a novel, actually saved my butt in writing the podcast. That when it came time to write the novel, all of the long arcs were there, all of the secondary characters and the beats with the setbacks at the right point. So that made it easier. The hardest thing was the podcast is told with an omniscient who literally can read everyone's. That's the part, Diana, that you mentioned, the old time radio show.
Yeah.
The old time radio show narrator was, well, this person was thinking this. And shtick of those sort of shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so when going into books, were noxious on the narrator. So I had to explain why. Oh, can his minds? Why is he inside every head? And so this far, which is 200 years in the future, they've developed technology that's happening. It's called telesensation. And this is this amazing scientist in Japan who's using people. He calls it telesensation because it's using this outside thing. It literally can translate any view into a visual for a blind person. Right now, about this. So it's not portable. But the way technology works, give it a couple thousand refinement and development, and yeah, we'll all be able to telesensate. We'll all be able to people's like this. So using telesensation, the doctor has touched, which bring him to her time and space, and then he looks through her eyes.
Yeah. Okay, so my first thought on that is, Lord pity the person who decides to try to read my thoughts. It's very much akin to Neverland, Wonderland in there.
You need like a disclaimer in your thoughts for anyone who tries that.
Right. And then the second thought is just I'm blown away with the whole steampunk genre in general, the amount of creativity that goes into these inventions, because you have to practically be an inventor yourself with all of these gadgets you've got to come up with, and you've got to know how they work and properly operate. And I feel like it's a special skill set within the writing community. You can't just be a writer. You have to be able to be a writer and an inventor on top of it. And in your case, you have to be a writer, a scientist, and an inventor.
Yeah. Do electric work. You have a lead coming out of the bridge that can come. That's what amount of research that only made doesn't exist. The other hand, future from 18. Not if airplanes. What would the world and those sort of things. So it's really a fun thought exercise, and it's very geeky. And I'm fortunate of like engineer friends, and I have a quantum physicist who's like practically on so that I can get the science right.
And that's awesome that not only there's
science fiction,
that science right, but you've got a physicist on call. That's like top level shit right there.
Because most of the time it's like me texting Diana going, does this sound believable? Does it sound like it could happen? And then, we have a couple glasses of wine, and by like the third glass of wine, it totally sounds plausible.
This is why historical yeah, I just have to be like, okay, so in the historical record, this guy did this, and then he did this, and then he did this, and I'm thinking too nefariously in modern terms that something isn't quite right in this situation. So I go back on my anthropology, minor for college, and I'm like, yeah. I feel very much like a literary anthropologist when I'm doing historical fiction, and that is nowhere near close to the awesomeness of the steampunk. It blows my mind. And I was able to read some of it. I was able to get into some of the book, because we do try to read all of the books, and sometimes it gets to be a very hard task because we have so many wonderful authors who come on every week. but I can say that
Yeah.
it is a fun book. I
When
mean,
you go living,
yeah, and if I'm living, I know, right? I can just, I know, I was giving Michelle crap this week. I'm like, can't you just put your kids on autopilot so you can do some reading? Who needs to go to grad school? Come on now, we've got a great book.
yeah,
That's a
seriously.
great books you need to read. I think at one point she wanted to snap my head off, but that's okay because this is why we're friends.
All with love.
You
And
just have to convince your grad school professors to incorporate the books from the show into the syllabus. Then you're all good.
Yeah, exactly. This totally fits with journalism too, you know, Michelle, right?
Right. I mean, this month, so it's, the way that my school is, it's not semesters, it's one class per month. So my class this month is computer assisted research. So it's basically investigative journalism.
That's totally the book.
So we could totally work in like the astrophysics and the science of your book. Totally could have worked that in somehow. I mean, that's all research.
It totally is.
Well, but that's really my narrator's number one objective. He's a historian, and to be able to research by using quantum entanglement to touch any object and then go into the life of a person who used it. Can you imagine how that would change history?
Oh my God.
Just to be able to see.
Yeah, you would get like accurate history on everything. I mean, for Christ's sake. I mean, when I write my Anita novel, my dialogue would be exact. I would know exactly what she said. And I mean, we at least know from historical record that she was sarcastic, which I love, but I could know exactly what jokes and how she snapped at her husband.
Just saying.
And when your editor goes,
did you see the big hoard of samurai coins that were just dug up in Japan?
Ooh,
they found a basket, huge. It's like the size of a gigantic laundry basket, full to the top with coins. I mean, it's a treasure. And to be able to do a coin, put on the telesensation helmet and go find out what happened.
Yes, it's so cool. Like I've got a necklace that's from the Alexandrian era, and it's like I can't say a necklace, but it's a coin that's from the Alexandrian era. And my husband, one of the many things that he collects is ancient coins, and it would be so cool to figure out the story on that coin, because what was cool about that coin, it wasn't just a coin. Somebody stamped a hole through the coin. So somebody at some point in ancient history wore that coin on a necklace, and it got lost or something happened to it, and then it made it to me, and I put it back on a chain. And I'm going with the story that it was on a necklace, because who else would put a hole through a coin? You don't do that. At least not back then. So
basically, I'm writing wish fulfillment. I'm writing a book that allows me to like peer into the past and actually know exactly what happened.
Yes, it totally is wish fulfillment, and it's a fun book. It really is a fun book. It's one of those fun adventure summer reads. I mean, it's just as fun. Your voice carries through from the podcast to the story itself, which is great, because, like I said, it's a fun podcast. It's a fun read. Because I'm reading through and I'm like, this is totally Eddie's voice. This is totally Eddie's fun voice. This girl.
Let's get time goes on, because for the first book, I needed to hew pretty closely to the pod, plain the science. And then planned for the podcast. And each year, there's going to be less of what happens in the pod, more of what happens not on the page, as it were, so that the books will become more rich and give more background, and you learn more about what's happening in the future. And people in the future travel to the past too, and you learn what their travels are and things. And so it should be really fun to kind of build that.
And
the two timelines are going to intake.
And that one comes out in 2019 again? Was that March?
Is scheduled for December this year.
Okay.
Because up. And then book 3, I'm writing book 3 at the same time, podcast, and that starts in October. I write a script, and then book 3 will come out at the end of season 3. So next summer, 4 will be in a year from there. So
fun. This is why I don't see you anymore, because we're both just so busy writing. We just pass by each other online. And we're like, "Hi, it's great seeing you.
I still love you."
Yeah, I'm still hearing from you from my respective corner of California. But yeah, and then for those of you, I mean, because it's never too early to plan for 2019, in my opinion, especially planning for guests on the podcast. But for 2019, I have already twisted Eddie's arm, and I'm making her come to Boca de Oro. It's my 3rd year doing that. So
yeah, I'm excited about it. It's on the schedule, so I just come up. It's already on the calendar, and
it's going to be fun. So much fun. And then
you better let me know.
And then we'll have to have you back on the show in January. Perfect timing. December. Book comes out. We'll have you on in January. Talk about Boca de Oro in the 2nd book. And the timing is perfect because guess what, guys? We have actually filled up all of our spots for 2018. We have a full lineup of guests going through the
so cool.
I like growing up and stuff.
That is really fantastic. So I'd like to answer from your earlier question. You asked how the book thing podcast. Write your story. And if you're a writer and you're listening to me and you're feeling stalled, I said that I had a book that everyone loved, but they said they couldn't sell. And I needed to write something more mainstream. Never think of me. So the podcast was my filler, but edge science fiction and fantasy. And then the books. So something that I thought time and give me a space. Well, what am I going to stream? It turned out to be the road that got me a publishing deal. And my agent and our podcast just continues to grow. We're coming very close to 100,000. Is like we thought we were going to hit it by December this year. Now it looks like we're going to hit 100,000 by September. And awesome. Keep going up. Yeah. But as the popular, then the book sales kind of dovetail into that. So it's entirely with this podcast. I won't have to change things. I won't have mainstream, and I can just build my brand as that weirdo who Transmigrations as Frankenstein meet. Can't really get two things that are further apart from each other, but somehow I crammed them into one story.
And it works. It totally works. I can definitely say that. But thank you, Eddie, so much for coming on. It was such a treat. I always love being able to talk with you and joke around with you. And I am such a champion, or cheerleader, I should say, of your work. And I'm so happy that this is all coming together so wonderfully for you. So guys, check out.
You guys, this podcast, Wine Women Words, is fantastic. It's a great, you guys have such broad taste. You bring in all different sorts of is and keep it. I'm really pleased you guys had me.
And we did not tell her to say any of that.
No problem. Other than
we'll talk about your bribe after the show, Eddie.
It was so much fun chatting with you. Thank you so much. I know this wasn't your first time on the show, but it was my first time chatting with you, so I had a blast.
Much, and I can't rest of the show. City of Brass. That one's very high on my TBR, so I'll be interested to see what.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to transition over to our discussion. I know Diana is dying to pick my brain about how far I've gotten. And you're welcome to stay and hang out if you want to listen, or if you want to go about your evening, whatever you'd like to do. But
I'll just
thank you.
Listen, but I haven't read yet.
Okay.
Well, we are going to. How far have you read, Michele?
I'm at chapter 5.
Okay. So we are going to discuss up to chapter 5. So there may be some spoilers in chapter 5. So we will, for those of you, you're on chapter 5 or up to chapter 5?
I am. Okay. I have completed chapter 4. Let's put it that way.
Okay. So then we understand where you're at. So this way we know exactly what's going on. So for those of you who are on our Facebook page, you'll see that I have started our casting process. I think that was the thing I was most excited about with Michele, was to discuss the casting of the characters.
Yes, fantasy casting is a huge part of Wine, Women, and Words, and we take it very seriously. So
I take it as seriously as I take World Cup soccer, which, and for the record, go France. I am rooting for France. I have been rooting for France.
When is the next game? Like, I kind of I pop in periodically just to see, or I did, to see where Switzerland was, because, you know, I'm Swiss and Italian, so I had to cheer on. But I was like, oh, Switzerland's out. Oh, Italy's out. Okay.
It's on Sunday.
Okay, Sunday is the next game. Okay.
Yeah, it's France-Croatia.
Okay.
Yes.
Yay.
So I'm looking forward to this. Yes. So yeah, we take this very seriously, and I have casted Dara, the actor Raoul Colley. For those of you who watch iZombie, he is the doctor on that.
That's a very appropriate casting for him. Diana, so Diana has already finished the book, just to give you guys a heads up. So it's not like
I finished this book in a week.
And at first I got, oh my God, you have to start this book. Oh my God, are you reading the book? Have you started the book? Where are you to the book? What are you doing? Progress report. I was like, I'm trying. I'm so sorry. I really am.
And I was like, okay, I need to back off. I'm being a pain in the ass.
But I did. There were like a couple of nights where I got some good reading in, and then I got to read again tonight. And as soon as I really got into it, I got a few pages into it, I realized that this is going to be one of our books. Like, this is like a Poison Study book. This is an Outlander book, or what was the other series that we were talking about?
Discovery of Witches. How can you forget?
I'm sorry. Discovery of Witches. This is one of those books for us.
And I love the Poison Study books. I love them so much. This feels a lot, I think it's a cross between Discovery of Witches and Poison Study, but it feels a little bit more on the Poison Study end of things.
It does. It really feels, it feels very, very Poison Study-ish. And I really want to go back and read those books again because they're amazing. But
I already want to reread this. I already do. And it makes me very sad that the second book doesn't come out until January. And I think whether Sean likes it or not, she's going to come back on the show.
Well, isn't it fun, to find a new series that you're obsessed with? I love when that happens.
And it's been a while since I found a series that I've been obsessed with. I've had Outlander. I love Outlander. I haven't been able to keep up with reading Outlander. I know. I see your face. I see you look up at me, Eddie. I know. I haven't kept up with it. I'm trying to keep up, be at least a book ahead of the seasons, so I read beforehand. But those are very thick books, and the amount of reading.
Very thick books.
Yes.
Are we joking? Look at this.
Okay, I don't think there's 800 pages. One book is 800 pages.
This is like 530, I think, ish.
That also counts the acknowledgments.
No, I don't count the acknowledgments. I
532 counts the acknowledgments and the glossary. I'm looking at my book right now, dear.
okay, 526 pages. Apologies. It's 520-ish pages.
Yes.
So I was just going in my head. I'm like, well, I could finish the book in like 5 days if I average 100 pages a day. But that's like if I like run my kids ragged to the point of exhaustion, they just drop. Which and I say that with love. I don't mean like, you know.
Just make them run laps around the neighborhood. You got this. I see no problem with this.
Which Landon was doing in the library. He was just running in circles around the table. I'm like, really, dude? We're at the library. Find something to do.
It's okay. Tires himself out. It's all good.
But I love Nari. I love how sarcastic and sassy she is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just I watched Aladdin for the first time ever with Lily and Landon tonight. And I was like, this is so perfect.
Love that.
So we were very much in like the genie and magic and all of that. Like I was like, this is so perfect. This is a very Wine, Women, Words themed evening.
Mm-hmm.
But Nari is awesome. Have you cast Nari? I'm having like brain block with Nari.
I haven't, and I'm trying not to get too crazy with my casting because I've casted the king, which you have not met yet, Ghassan, and I've casted Ali's sister and Ali's brother.
I haven't met those two yet. So I've met Nari, Dara, Ali, and like as I was singing the Prince Ali song, I was like, oh hey. And Anas, the guy who helps or is working with Ali. And then I really would, you know, there are some books that you just really want to be made into movies just so you could see how they would create the characters. That like the Perry, the mosquito parrot guy. I want to see how a director would create that character.
Oh, that would be
visually.
So cool. And yeah, this would be make such a cool series. I could see this as a TV series for like one of the streaming series, something for like HBO or Stars or Netflix, which is one of those really great fantasies. Because this feels like a cross between Arabian Nights. I know we keep comparing this to books, but for those of you who are not familiar with Poison Study or with The Discovery of Witches, think Arabian Nights meets Harry Potter.
That's a good way to look at it.
It really is. Because, I mean, she's coming into this world that she knows nothing about. There's already politics going on in this world. There's magic in this world. Obviously, there's jinn and there's mythology. And I really cannot wait to talk to her about her research into the mythology of this world, because she doesn't just cover the mythology of Egypt, or because it starts off in Cairo, but she covers mythology of the Middle East, even pulling in a little bit, touching on India a little bit, and it's really detailed. She's put a lot of effort into the world building, which is phenomenal, because you really do feel like you're there.
Even the words, like that's always something, especially, you know, you mentioned Harry Potter. The words, that's always something that blew my mind with J.K. Rowling, that she created basically like another language for all of the, you know, the spells and where everyone lived. And that's the same thing in this book, is she basically created another language.
You don't have to necessarily create another language. If you go into the glossary, this is one of the things that I was talking about. It's she's actually pulling in words from the Middle East and using them within this. So there's a glossary of beings of water. The Shedu are mythical winged lions, an emblem of the Nahi family. Are these, some of these, I feel like a lot of this is actually, part of the history, part of their mythology. So I don't know how much of this is made up or how much isn't. I mean, you've got ghouls, which we all know. There's the jinn, the different types of jinn. Isha, the late evening hour, your evening prayer, for the general terminology. So, I mean, you really get a touch of the culture, really taste of it within this. And it's, Diverse Spines has been trending on Instagram. This is a diverse book. And a little bit of a, I don't want to say spoiler, but it's a little bit of a thing to watch out for in the series. It also touches on LGBTQ community. It's got something for them too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I will say one creature, like we're dealing with all the jinn and the creepy Ifrit Walking Dead ghost things. There's one creature that I would love to have in my house, and it is the Ishta. It is a small-scaled creature obsessed with organization and footwear. Like, give me one of those. Let him come and organize my house and keep all my shoes
whenever he wants.
Like, I read that, and I read about that little, and that was such a cool scene when that was the first scene that Ollie was introduced, and he was going to meet with Anas after prayer, and that was like, that's one of the little details that that really helped build the world, is that she like slipped that in there, that he gave his shoes to this little creature who would polish them and repair them and make them all clean and make them smell good, and he would get them back at the end. Like, I want that.
Right?
All I have is a husky who chews on them and makes them smell bad and drooly.
Thank God.
That's the opposite of what I want.
So, speaking of Ollie, what are your feelings about him?
I think I'm going to get like really sophisticated with my answer here. Okay. I think he's very idealist, and I think he has a privileged outlook on what his world is, and he's going to be one of the characters who gets completely flipped on, like, his idea of what the world is going to be completely destroyed by the end of this book, because it's not even close to how he sees it.
I can see that as an accurate assessment. I really agree with that. And I think that black and white ideal of this is how the world is going to be annoys me. So he as a character annoys me. I mean, I get where he's coming from, and the fact that he and his principles annoys me really says something to the author. Because I'm like, really, guy, come on now. The world is not black and white. You cannot think of it in black and white, but he does, and he tries to.
Well, he's a prince, so I mean, he's been brought up to, to
he's
think.
He's not just a prince. He's been living in a temple, basically. He's been training to be an assistant to the king his whole life. So he's lived a very, very sheltered existence. He hasn't been out in the world. He hasn't even been out in the world as much as a prince's brother has. So he's the second in line for the throne, third in line for the throne. Second in line is his brother. So he's third in line for the throne, and his brother has more worldly experience than he does. And he's the one who's supposed to be advising his brother. And so I think as a character, he's got that major flaw, that black and white. There's no other way around this. And yeah, he annoys me. And by the end, he pissed me off. The book.
So are we thinking, well, I mean, you know, but are we thinking that there is going to be a love triangle between Dara and Nari and Ollie? I love
Do you
the
want me
name.
to actually say?
Well, I mean, I'm like 99% sure there is, so.
Yeah, a minor love triangle. It's not major. It's a minor love triangle. Very minor, because, I mean, you can tell by the fifth chapter, by chapter 4, there's a connection between her and Dara. I mean, I said it last week. I can see a romance going between the two of them. And do you see that too?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a gorgeous, handsome warrior who's sarcastic and snarky and
everything Michele wants in a book boyfriend.
And kicks ass, so why wouldn't there be? And eyes the color of emeralds, like, come on.
So basically what you're telling me is that you love Dara.
Well, I mean, he, like, okay, first of all, he shows up and saves her life, so there's that. But it's not, and also what I love is that she's not, I mean, she does need saving to an extent because she doesn't know what she's gotten herself into, so she doesn't know how serious it is.
Yeah.
But she doesn't necessarily want his help.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of like, and at first he's like, who the heck, like you text me, and like, I fell in love with him when he first showed up and was like, who the F called me?
Yeah, you better run because I'm going to tear you limb from limb for calling me down to this mortal plane. And she's like, oh crap, what'd I do? And she's hiding behind she's in a cemetery when she calls him, so she's hiding behind a tombstone thinking, okay, how can I sneak out of here? What's the best way for me to sneak out of here so that he does not notice me?
Which, I mean, in a cemetery, there's really not much moving, so if you move, you're kind of screwed.
A little bit. But it's, yeah, there's a really interesting dichotomy between the two of them. It's a play, like I was mentioning before. My one big criticism of Discovery of Witches by the end of the series was that Matthew got very alpha. I don't like very alpha characters.
He did get very alpha. Very alpha.
Yeah, when they get to be so imposing that they just try to push the heroine around so much and push her into that way. That gets on my nerves a lot. And with the dichotomy between the two of them, as you'll see progressing in the book, she did a really good job of that because they're both alphas. That's the best way to put it, is that they're both alpha personalities. So he will try to push her, but at the same time, she pushes back and she's like, no, you're going to get in your place and you're going to stay in your place because this is the way I'm going to do things. And he backs off and he's like, okay, all right, fine. You do it and you see, you know, I'm going to let you get yourself injured in case you need to get injured. It's because you're not listening to me.
You know what? I just realized this book reminds me of the book about the girl who doesn't realize that she's like a god or something. And it's like, it's a trilogy and you read it and you loved it. And it was she was like part goat or something.
Daughter of Smoke and Bones.
Yes, thank you. That's what this book reminds me of.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's very much along that the relationship between Dara and Nari is just like the relationship of the two main characters in that.
Yes. Daughter of Smoke and Bones. So if you read that one, we're talking, the characters are, hold please.
Girl.
Karu, and it doesn't say. I read them like a few years ago, I think, right?
Yeah. Ooh, I like your casting. Eddie sent me some casting options. And yes, there is a spot for a middle-aged woman. Sheree Deshalu. Yes, she would be perfect. There is a character coming up, Miss Ring. I think she's middle-aged. She's going to be working with Nari once Nari gets to the city. And yeah, I think that'll be perfect. And I'll have to look up Tina Desai, because I've got this image in my head of who I want for, and Tina Desai is from Sense8. For those of you.
Tina Desai is Kala.
Okay, you know, I only watched one episode of Sense8. I couldn't get into that one. I'm sure I watched a couple episodes before I gave up. Yeah, I can kind of see this. Yeah, I think she might work for that. Because, I mean, Nari's about 20. So we'll have to go for somebody kind of a little on the young side. But yeah, I think she might work. I think she might work for Nari. You might have to look. We might have to look this up.
And in Sense, where she started in one place and expanded and then she together into her, and then where she thought she had a city of brass, and I was very emphasized to play both kind of the to come out the other side really well.
Yeah.
And I'm still on you to stick with Sense8. You have to give it 5 episodes. After 5 episodes, if you still want to turn it in,
I may have to try again. I might.
Since it's done now, you know, you'll be finishing the story.
Okay.
But
sometimes it's kind of nice when you pop into a series to go from the beginning to the end of the series and do that, so that you're not waiting. Because like I know right now, I'm also the 3 main shows that I'm watching right now are Claws, the Handmaid's Tale, and Harlots. Those are my 3 series. And I had to take a break from the Handmaid's Tale for a few weeks because it got too real and it was depressing me too much.
I had to stop watching that too. I haven't even watched the 2nd season. I watched the 1st season and I was like, okay. I can't watch this right now. I'm getting too paranoid.
I just recently picked it back up and I'm feeling like, okay, I can handle this now. I can handle this a little bit. But I like being able to binge watch. I mean, streaming Netflix has really changed the way we've viewed stuff. So I might just have to pick up Sense8 again.
TV shows more than move or the way that we read books. You know? Which
one series that I watched that I'm waiting desperately for them to update season 3 on Netflix is The Magicians. And everyone that I talked to kept telling me that the books weren't as good as the series. And I just listened to the 2nd book and I'm listening to the 3rd book right now. And the books are amazing. I don't know why people tell me that the books were bad, because they're so good.
Like the book's better than the show, which is typical for me.
Right. I mean, the 2nd book, it kind of, to me, it felt like, for at least the 1st and 2nd season of the show, it kind of felt like they just like picked different parts of the first 2 books and mashed them all together into the first 2 seasons. So I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do with the 3rd season. I haven't watched the 3rd season yet. So like, I know what's supposed to happen because I read the book, but I don't know what they're going to do. So, but the books are awesome. And the actor who reads the book, I am low-key obsessed with his voice.
Are we going to have him be our next audio narrator?
I would fangirl so hard if we had him on the show.
We need to reach out to Julia to see if she can get him for us.
I would forget words. Like, I'm blushing right now thinking about it.
Well, then on the show then.
Your questions down in advance.
Right. I'll just send them to Diana, and I'll just sit here like this. Just talk.
I don't care what you talk about. Just
right.
talk. You know.
I forwarded you a passage from like my grocery list. If you could just read that back to me, I'm very interested.
One thing I do want to get on with the book, though, and I want to get your opinion on this. So we switched to Ollie's perspective in chapter 4.
Yes.
That's when we actually pick up with his narrative. What are your thoughts on picking up with his narrative? Do you get the sense of political strife?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know we're comparing a lot of books here, and I'm going to throw another book in the mix, but I feel like there's definitely a sense, there's like the minority and the majority, and the minority have been forced to like create their own black market type world of survival. And it reminds me of Wicked, and the way that there was the like the talking animals and everything, and they kind of became, and they're the oppressed party. So there's definitely something. I haven't gotten far enough to know what the political climate is, but I mean, I don't even know why they're buying babies, but they're buying babies, and I'm assuming it's to help them, but I don't know why.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what you're going to see from a perspective of Ollie, and at least in my opinion, is that you get to see him, you get the backstory through him. So you're not ladled with all of this backstory. You're not ladled with Dara telling her all of this backstory. And really, Dara can't tell that much backstory because he hasn't been there in ages. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that it's gotten to that point where, he's like, I'm going to take you there, but I haven't been there in years myself.
Well, it's been like thousands of years, right? That's what the Perry said, was the war was like 4,000 years ago, and that's the last time that he was out there.
Yeah, so he can't tell what's going on, and the Perry could possibly tell what's going on, and that would be a lot of info dumping. And
from one character.
Yeah. So I think it's really clever the way she's bringing in Ollie, because I mean, Ollie plays a role in the story in and of itself, but seeing that narrative from Ollie leading up to what's going on kind of warms us up to that area. So we know what's going on. We get that backstory. We know what kind of situation she's walking into. So we're more prepared than she is. And I think that's really clever, the way she did that.
Well, clearly we're going to have a lot of questions for her.
Oh, we are. And we were asked to submit those questions ahead of time to her so that she could be prepared. And I don't think that there's going to be an issue with that. I really don't.
Nope. Now I have to do my, like, at least maybe 50 pages a day, because then I'll finish in 10 days. I feel like 50 pages is more manageable.
It's going to pick up, which is, really fun, weird to say, because, I mean, it's already at this point really fast paced, because I think last week when we last talked, I was on chapter 6 when we were talking with Julia.
And then you finished it.
And then I finished it by this last Tuesday. I was like, okay, I'm going to finish it by Thursday. Nice. And then it was like 10:30 at night, and I had just a couple chapters left, and I was like, screw it, I'm staying up late finishing this book. Which I did. And it was funny because, so, I don't know, I don't think this is TMI, guys, but, so the husband asked for a back massage, and I was like, and I was in the middle of reading the book, and I was getting towards the end, and I'm like, is it going to involve me actually stopping my book? Because if I have to stop my book, you're not getting a back massage. So what ended up happening was I used my feet. I did the
so, give you your background. Yeah, I'm gonna give my feet. I'm not putting down my book.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reading, and I'm like, As I'm reading, I'm massaging his back of my feet, and I'm like, yeah, all right.
You're totally right, honey. I cannot believe that happened.
Yeah. Actually, no, it wasn't too bad because I was just like, don't talk to me. I'm just gonna, sit here, and then you just let me read. And he was like, okay.
Well, yeah, I don't, sometimes, like, I'll try to talk to Rich about the books that I'm reading, but he doesn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there will be moments that, like, I don't care that he doesn't care. I have to talk to him about this book.
Yeah. I'll go into great like literary detail and like literary analysis on a book, and Rand's like, I don't care. Like, where's Michele?
Good.
Why aren't you texting Michele about this book?
And this week she's probably like, because she hasn't read it yet. Damn it.
As people have seen on our Instagram, where I'm like, I've got the picture of the guy from Big Bang Theory going. I'm like, that's how I feel. There's so much that's going to be happening with the book, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so much, and I'm gonna explode if I don't get to talk to her about it. But we do agree that Dara is our new book boyfriend.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's been a while since I had one, so it feels good.
Yeah, it does. And I think he's going to be a quality one.
He'll be right up there with Stanton and Valak. Oh, Valak. He's still my favorite.
I like Matthew in books 1 and 2.
Discovery of Witches.
Yeah, Discovery of Witches. Sorry, guys. You guys should just be tracking my thoughts here at this point.
Valak is Poison Study.
Yes, Valak is Poison Study, and Valak is a good one. Or Jamie.
Oh, obviously. I mean, Jamie is like the book boyfriends of all book boyfriends.
Yeah, exactly. So. Exactly. I mean, he's our Scotsman. So, yeah, Dara's definitely book boyfriend material. I was, from the get-go, I was like, oh, you are sarcastic, and you're rude, and you
are all the things I look for in a book boyfriend.
Exactly. I'm like, you can stay. There's a scene coming up that I think that is my favorite scene, and I cannot wait for you to get to, because he is such an asshole, and he is so charming at the same time, that I purposely had to go back and reread just because I was like, this is great. This is such a great scene. This is the character in a nutshell kind of scene. If you had to pinpoint one scene that just described this character, this is that scene. And it was just so brilliantly done for him.
Well, on that note, we can clearly talk about this book for another hour.
No, we can't, because you're only on chapter 5, and if we talk about this book for another hour, I'm going to end up spilling secrets. So it's probably time for us to sign off.
So we're going to go on that. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Eddie. We had so much fun talking with you, and thanks for hanging out during our discussion.
You can. It's just gone to the tar.
We'll start reading. It's not too late. You're not too far behind me.
Exactly, yeah. Just start reading. And then for those of you who are reading the book along with us, if you have questions for Chakraborty, send them to us. We'll be more than happy to include them in our questions from when she's on the show.
And keep reading and join us next week. And who are we having next week? You are a scheduler.
Magda, and I forget her last name. It's our first poet. We're having our first poet on the show, which I'm pretty excited about.
I'm excited. All right. Well, everyone, keep reading.
Thank you, Di.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast.
And have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night, everyone. Bye.